mental health activity known as VENT. Vent. A vertical of Richie Knows. Community-driven mental health solutions. By gamers, for gamers. Destigmatizing mental health. It's your brain. Delete the dread from your head. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Mental health affects us all. We are Vent. No judgment. No judgment. We got ya.
My name is Jonathan Bautista.
My name is Kitty. I go by Kitty Kaboom online.
I'm Stefan Lopezanski.
Oliver Boone.
Micah Greenleaf.
Ryder Davis.
My name is Kim.
Elijah.
Amanda.
Devonta. Derek.
Cheyenne.
Alan.
Andrew Forbes.
My name is Sherry Nan.
And I have struggled with mental health.
My earliest notions of paranoia came up in high school.
My anger, my frustration.
It finally starts chipping away at you to one point where you do get kind of down. I suffer with anxiety currently. Loneliness.
Isolation.
Delusions.
Bullying.
Sadness. Fear.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
I've been struggling with depression my whole life.
Still didn't know how to handle it.
When you get under that, it's really hard to get out of it.
Depression is like a shadow. And some days there might be overcast, or you might not be able to see your shadow, and you think that your depression's gone, and then when the sun comes back out, your shadow's right there, and it always will be with you.
I feel like gaming is a good way to get yourself out of that.
Just talking to them and finding peers that had similar mentality and similar interests.
It's very warm and very welcoming.
That was a huge help.
I'm so happy like I have a community.
You know, I think that that's like the best form of therapy, just talking.
You talk it all out, and it really helps. It really does.
Introducing Vent, a safe, supportive space from Richie Knows. We connect gamers. Hey everybody, I want to welcome everyone to Richie Knows and Vent, your virtual mental health spa. I'm Robert Clotworthy. Some of you may recognize me as the voice of Jim Raynor in StarCraft, and I'll be your host in tonight's episode. Now, people are probably asking a little bit about what is Vent, and I said before, it's your virtual mental health spa. This is a place where gamers can come with, and basically just open up. We don't judge you. We're here to listen to you. And this is all about community-driven mental health solutions. And the community is, well, it's the gaming community. And with Richie Knows and Vent, we're all partners in this. And being partners, one of the things that's very, very important to us is to get your feedback. We want to know what you think, both positive and negative, about what it is that we're doing, because what we're doing here is something that has never been done before. This is focused on the local gaming community. And this alpha test is geared towards a small portion of the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles in general. So we want to know what it is we're doing right, what it is we're doing wrong, because that's the way that we can get better, because it's all about gamers helping gamers. And tonight, well, this show is called Vent Journeys, and this is our penultimate episode in this, our alpha test. So we've got one more show next week that we're going to do. And we've had some spectacular guests on the shows. And I'm really thrilled that tonight we have, I think this is pretty interesting. It's a father and son. Now, the father just happens to be the director of programs and services at NAMI in West Los Angeles. Now, what is NAMI? NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Now, this is an organization that is dedicated to helping people who are dealing with mental struggles. And it's completely free. It's a great service. And we're going to put up slides as the show goes on of how you can contact NAMI. And along with the director of programs and services is his son. Now, his son just happens to be a 21-year-old sophomore at Boston University. He's a big gamer. And both of them have struggled with their own mental health issues. I don't want to tip you off as to what it's going to be, but we'll let them get into it. So first I would like to introduce, and I'm really proud to introduce this man, Tim Davis. Tim, welcome. And I would also like to, at the same time, introduce Tim's son, Ryder Davis. Welcome, everybody. How are you two doing?
Hey, Robert. Glad to be here.
Ryder, how are you doing?
I'm good, Robert. Thanks for having us.
Before we start, we got to establish the street cred. What games do you play?
I love playing NBA 2K. I
Uh-huh.
love playing FIFA, and I do still play Fortnite.
All right. StarCraft is not in the mix?
Not so much, but I
Okay.
should get to it.
No worries. All right, Tim, let's start out with you. Tell me what your mental health journey has been.
Well, thank you, Robert. First of all, thank you for having me and my son here. And I love what you're doing here at Vent, and really proud and honored to be partnered with you guys in what you're doing, because what you're doing is very aligned with what we do at NAMI West Side, which is providing support for our community. So I love that we're targeting the gamer community here. And I do love that my son also, as a gamer, is going to receive some support as well, but he can talk more about that. My mental health journey, what has actually, I've kind of changed the definition in the last few months. What I used to say is my mental health journey began with my son's diagnosis of bipolar disorder 3.5 years ago, because that's what connected me with NAMI. That's what got me taking classes and learning specifically about mental health challenges and treatments and how to communicate and everything. But as I've learned more, and as I've got this fantastic job and had an opportunity to talk to students also in this job, and also present with Ryder, I've come to realize that my mental health journey began just as all of ours did at birth. And, growing up, I was a very anxious kid. I actually had undiagnosed ADD, which only got diagnosed a couple of years ago. But instead, I was made fun of in high school they called me Orbit because I was very spacey. And that's how we dealt with mental health then. But I didn't know anything about tools or recovery or how I also turned out to have addiction and alcoholism issues that were passed down through my family. So my mental health journey has been 58 years and counting. And I do like to impress this upon the students that we talk to, so that they know they're on their own mental health journeys, just as they're sitting and listening to us talk about ours.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love that you say that the mental health journey begins basically at birth, because think about it. I mean, we go from this wonderful, perfect place where we have no cares, and what's the first thing we do is we see the world and we start to scream. I mean, it's a shock to the system.
It's a harsh beginning, but it's when our physical health starts as well. So those two tracks are beginning there. And I think it's only the physical health that really gets noticed mostly these days, but we're trying to change that at NAMI, and I think you guys are doing that as well.
Well, interesting. Earlier, or actually last week, we had Sharon, who's the president of NAMI, on the show, and she was talking about mental health and saying that mental illness, I guess, is the last true area that's discriminated against and stigmatized. How do you think things are changing? It seems to be that mental health is now on everybody's radar right now. Do you see things getting better? How do you kind of envision things are going to be in the future?
Well, so you're talking to someone who's sort of right in the middle of trying to address stigma, specifically mental health stigma. And, when we talk to students, we're talking to students, really diverse populations who have confronted and had to deal with many forms of stigma, which is also never feels good. But as a straight white man, I know that I've gotten a pass on a lot of different forms of stigma, but I have experienced mental health stigma, and I've experienced it internally, how you can kind of shame yourself and not wanting to talk about the things that are going on with you. But I've also experienced it telling friends about my own stuff or what's going on with my son. And there's just nothing worse than feeling you can't be honest about what's really going on with you. I happen to feel it is getting better. I that there's professional athletes now coming to the fore, talking about it more openly, a lot of politicians and entertainers. But the people that we talk to, what's so great is when we go into these presentations at schools, we have people like Ryder, young people who look like the students they're talking to, talking about their own mental health challenges and making it okay for students to talk about it. And very often we'll see kids in the Q&A portion of our presentations start to talk about their own struggles or their sister's problems or, something that they noticed with a family friend. And so I see it, I have a front row seat to seeing this stigma starting to dissipate. But I know we have miles to go, and this is really one of the things that drives me and makes this such a kind of a purpose-driven job, because I do see it changing, but I know that it's got to continue.
Ryder, you've been mentioned a couple of times in here. Your father's got a front row seat. Seems like you're right in the mix. Tell us what your personal journey with mental health has been.
Yes. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder a little more than 3 years ago, but about 3.5 years ago. I was a senior in high school at the time, and I had no, awareness of mental health, or I didn't care about mental health. I didn't, it wasn't on my mind at all. And suddenly I had a manic episode. I was experiencing a lot of different symptoms, ended up in the hospital, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Obviously, that's changed my life in a ton of ways, but I've been really grateful for the support I've received from family, friends, and from NAMI. And to see what you guys are doing with Vent, Richie Knows, is really amazing, and it really means a lot to me personally.
How did it manifest itself? You said you were diagnosed 3 years ago. Or were there indicators earlier than that? Was this something that nobody noticed, or did it just kind of pop up suddenly?
Usually surfaces after 18, and I actually recently turned 18, so it was pretty early. But yeah, I had no signs. I had definitely dealt with anxiety earlier in life, but nothing along the lines of bipolar disorder.
Tim, you'd mentioned alcoholism, drug addiction. You're pretty open about that. Do you think that by your own experience, by being on the inside and getting through this, that it gives you I don't want to say more empathy, but people that are struggling, do you have a greater understanding of what it is they're going through just because you've gone through these struggles yourself?
Well, I do think so. I think that's one of the reasons this job suits me so well. But I really got to give Ryder a shout out, because when we first started giving presentations together, what he would listen to is me talking about him, me talking about his mental health journey, and how I had to sort of snap into action to be the savior dad and learn how to handle his symptoms and communicate with him better and all that stuff. And he, after a couple of these presentations, he was like, "Dad, why all you're doing is talking about me. What about all your stuff? I mean, you experienced childhood trauma, you had addiction and alcoholism, and he knows that I'm sober now, but I hadn't discussed any of this in the presentations prior to Ryder pointing that out. And so really, I do, again, Ryder, appreciate you. I know he also probably didn't want to hear me just talking about him endlessly, but it really did make me, I think it made me a better presenter. And I think it did make it easier for the kids to relate to me when I would talk about childhood trauma. I lost my mom when I was 11 years old. And that's always kind of a stark thing to bring up with students. But then all of a sudden we're talking about trauma, and I'm making it easier for them to talk about their own trauma. And there's no competition where trauma is concerned. We all experience different levels of it, I think, but being able to talk about it is how healing happens. And, I'm just so grateful that I get to do this work. And I do think that Ryder, he just right there said, I got diagnosed 3.5 years ago, but he had experienced therapy before his diagnosis. And I'm really grateful for that, because he had developed a really good relationship with a therapist that has stayed with him throughout his journey. And I think that really did help, Bud. And I don't know if you think that, but I think you were better prepared than maybe some of your friends might have been for for your diagnosis, because you'd already kind of gone down that road a little bit about taking care of your mental health, even if that's not the way we framed it.
What do you think, Ryder? Do you agree?
No.
It's okay not to agree.
Yeah,
definitely don't have to.
I was in therapy for many years on and off. It started after my parents got separated, and I mostly just talked about like day-to-day school stuff, just your average like high school stuff, middle school before that. No, I was not prepared at all for what would come. No, but I was really supported. Before my dad interrupts me, as he likes doing.
Like
I was really supported by him, by my mom, by friends. Everybody really came and supported me as much as they could.
What about social media, the pressure of social media? Did that factor into it at all? I mean, here your father was dealing with his own issues, you had your issues, and you look on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever it might be, and everybody looks like they're having a perfect life. Did that just kind of, magnify the feelings that you had?
Well, right now I'm having some light issues, but yeah, thank you, Robert. That's a really good question, and totally. Social media can be super harmful. I don't know what's going on my lighting. Social media can be unbelievably harmful, and there we go. Social media can be unbelievably harmful. I remember the first couple months that I was going through this, it was summer after high school, and all my friends were in Mykonos and Saint-Tropez, all these exotic places, and I was in my room taking medication, going through treatment. So it was super hard. And to this day, it's really hard. There's something called comparing and despairing. Mm-hmm. And I think social media feeds into that unbelievably. It's you go and you scroll, see what other people are doing, and you compare it to what you're doing, and you start to despair. So yeah, it can be very harmful for sure.
Well, can I just jump in here? Because I got to say, it's so great to hear that insight coming from you, Ryder, because I know when you are not feeling well, that's what I hear. What I hear is, oh, he doesn't have to deal with this, and look at how much she's got, or this, and I think when you're doing well, you're not comparing in the same way. So again, I'm glad you have that insight. And I think that really, if you want to compare, I think that puts you leap years ahead of a lot of your friends who again, this is me being a little bit Pollyanna and putting a positive spin on it. But if there's any benefit to what you've gone through, it's that you do have insights and perspective on your own mental health that are going to serve you for the rest of your life, where your friends are going to be playing catch up because they all need to get that same insight and learn the same tools, but it's going to come to them later.
Why do you think there's still, a stigma against mental health? I mean, did you feel that way, Ryder, when you were experiencing, you're in high school? I mean,
yeah, I think there's stigma against anything or anyone that's different from the norm, right? And when I was having this manic episode, I couldn't have been more different from the norm. Not obviously actually, but echoing my dad, I too am a straight white man, so I hadn't really dealt with much stigma at all before. But when I was having my manic episode, I was speaking really fast. I was sort of babbling often. I had all these big ideas, very grandiose, and people were super off-put by it. And so naturally, I was judged and stigmatized, and people were avoiding me. And even after the symptoms subsided and I was trying to recover, I still felt a lot of stigma. And yeah, so to answer your question, not to drone on like some other people do.
You're not talking about your dad, are you? He's not that drone.
No, never. But yeah, I think people judge who or what is different. And since my diagnosis, I've been different. And honestly, I'm willing to say this. People that I've met since the diagnosis, so who didn't see me go through all this stuff, I haven't always disclosed my diagnosis. I haven't always disclosed my struggles. And of course, the reason why I haven't disclosed it is because of stigma. So it certainly still exists today.
These episodes you're talking about, how do they manifest themselves? Does it just kind of, treat me like I don't know what I'm talking about at all, like having a clue? This is the first time.
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned the speed of speech and grandiosity and stuff, but also not really sleeping, just going like 1,000 miles an hour with everything, thoughts, mannerisms, actions, everything is super sped up. Also, not really sleeping. That was how it.
And coming up with some really bad ideas on how to make money, or how to spend money, how to make money and how to spend money. And this is the thing that goes back to the stigma question, Robert. The thing is, like, if you have diabetes or cancer, it doesn't change the way you act. And in fact, it changes the way your body is acting. And but because your behavior doesn't change, it's easier, I think, for people to be sympathetic. The fact is, mental health conditions change the way we think, feel, and act, which makes an impression on the people around us, and it can be challenging. So this is, again, part of what drives us when we're giving these talks is we want to kind of cultivate some deeper compassion with people so that they can understand. And by the way, I'm talking to myself too. I got furious at Ryder just yesterday, when really I wasn't mad at him. I was mad at his behavior, which probably has something to do with the challenge that he lives with. And so what we try to distinguish the behavior from the person. The behavior is they're not responsible for that behavior. It's part of the way the condition expresses itself. But it does make it super challenging, even for the program director who, of NAMI West Side, who talks endlessly about mental health. It can still be really challenging. And I want to apologize now publicly for losing my temper there yesterday, Ryder. I did not feel good about myself after that.
Well, we'll give a virtual hug all around. Ryder, is this something, the bipolar disorder, is this something you're going to have to deal with your entire life, or is it or not?
Yeah, I do. There's no cure, doesn't go away, but I'm very happy to say it's almost been 3 years. I had 3 manic episodes in quick succession in a period of about 6 months. And it's now been 3 years since I've had any sort of manic episode. Haven't been in the hospital, none of that. So I am in recovery. My dad likes to call it remission. I don't really understand that, but
I have never yet said that at all. You're thinking of your other father. I never said anything about remission.
I don't have another father, but I'm in recovery, and that's day to day. I think, strangely enough, the way it affects me day to day is more due to my medication that prevents those episodes than it is the disorder itself. So what I deal with day to day is a lot of fatigue, increased hunger, general sort of sadness, stuff like that. And a lot of that comes from the medication, which is preventing the episode.
Now, the two of you, obviously, father and son, how do you complement each other with this, right? Are you kind of watching Dad make sure he's working on what he needs to work on, and Dad, are you monitoring Ryder? How does this synergy work?
Well, when it's working well, we're both monitoring ourselves. Like, I'm staying out of his lane, and he's staying out of mine. We do, that is challenging for us. But I think we've gotten more compassionate. I mean, Ryder, I'm curious to know what you think, but I do think we're better at giving notes to each other. I mean, trust me, we have lots of notes to give, but I think we give them more gently than we used to.
Yeah.
Do you both look at this as a journey that you're on? I mean, maybe it's you're kind of looking long term as opposed to short term. Maybe there's a bit of wisdom in that you're less critical of the specific actions that may happen because you're thinking, listen, we're in for the long haul here. Does that make any sense?
Definitely. Yeah, it's a really good way to look at it because, you can have a bad day or a bad week, but like, I know things have been better and they will get better when I'm down and stuff. So looking forward rather than focusing too much on like you said, the specific action is really important for sure.
Well, I will tell you from my sobriety, my experience in sobriety, the mantra "one day at a time" has been really helpful. And just to know if there's a challenge that's feeling overwhelming, to kind of remind myself, take a breath, this too will pass and we can get through this. And sometimes it really means kind of walking away, because we do have a tendency, the two of us, to butt heads. And I think we're better at kind of being able to sort of go to our corners rather than just lock, because nobody wins when we're locked in combat. I do want to say I do have a little more hopeful outlook than Ryder does. And he would probably tell me that it's easier for me to have that outlook because he's not taking the medicine and he's not listening to the psychiatrist. He has a new psychiatrist who did say he'd probably be taking medication for the rest of his life, which boy, I'd like to have that. I was not happy to hear the psychiatrist say that, because
this.
who knows what kind of breakthroughs might loom ahead in the future. You know, I think we are I think we really are at a turning point in. Oh, okay. Ryder wants me to stop talking, but no. This to me, there was a. I'm sorry, real quick. There was a documentary on PBS recently about the history of mental illness, and we have gone through so much in our compassion and our treatment of mental illness and mental health conditions, as I try to say now. And I think we can't even imagine the breakthroughs that might be looming in the next 5 or 10 years. So I'm really hopeful that, you know, I don't know that there's a cure, but I think that Ryder is going to be able to live without pumping this really difficult medicine into his bloodstream for the rest of his life.
Can I just jump in really quick for the next question? Sure. Just the reason that I didn't want to get into that is because medication is a really tricky topic. It affects everybody differently, literally every single person differently. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we do these presentations together. We haven't really even touched on that. We go into schools, we talk about it. And I try to be I don't try to be preachy about medication or say anything on medication, because it really does work differently for everybody. Some people with the same diagnosis, same condition that I have, are totally fine with that medication. And I have received professional advice that I still need to be on medication. So I'm gonna take that advice from a doctor. I just wanted
hold on. Tell me about this high school presentations that you do. I'm very interested in the younger people.
And I thought this would be a good way to get into it. So through NAMI, through the organization NAMI, there's a program called Ending the Silence, mm-hmm. where usually 2 people, sometimes it can be 3, but it's usually 2 people go into high schools, middle schools, and talk about mental health, give a presentation about mental health awareness and how mental health affects all of us. And it's usually a lead presenter, who is often my dad, an older person who presents like a slideshow, and a younger person who in this case would be me, giving a personal, sort of telling your mental health story. And so my father and I have given many, dozens of these presentations. Before COVID-19, it was in person. We would travel around the LA area. It's really fun, really amazing experience doing that with him. Since then, obviously, it's been online, not quite as fun, but it's still really meaningful. And it's been definitely the best part of this. The best thing that's come out of this mental health thing has been these presentations.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I do want to just say, it's not just an old person who presents a slideshow. It's someone with lived experience as a family member. So we have other lead presenters. I think you spoke with Erin the other day. She's another lead presenter. We have a nice diverse roster of lead presenters who all have a family perspective to offer. And that's why Ryder heard me in the first couple of presentations we gave together talking about him, because that is what we're trained to do. But I was really glad that he led me to go a little deeper and to talk a little bit more personally about my own mental health challenges. But yeah, it's fantastic. And really, I think, Ryder, you would agree, the best part of these presentations are the Q&As, where the students get to ask us questions or tell us what's on their mind. And really, like one of the last presentations we gave last school year, there was a kid. It was actually a hybrid presentation. So we were presenting to half the class that was Zooming in from their homes, and then half the class that had just started getting back. Remember, at the end of May or June, April or May, they were starting to let kids back in this class. And one of the kids who was in the class came up to the front of the class, stood at the lectern where the camera was, and he talked about living with autism. And you could tell he was taking some heavy breaths, but it meant it was, and there were claps from the back of the classroom, you know, from the fellow students. So like, that's what happens. And again, that's what's happening. I think that's what's going to happen with Vent. I think that there are going to be gamers logging in who are like, oh my God, we're not alone. Oh, there's someone who understands what's happening here. Oh, now I have the opportunity to talk about what's really going on with me. And Ryder, you are making such an impact on those students that we talk to, because you're giving them the license to be honest and share about what's really going on with them. So you
Yeah,
should.
well, that's Vent's mission statement is to create an environment where people can open up, where they can talk, where there's not going to be judgment. Because once you start talking about the issues that are affecting you, the power of those issues start to dissipate. You know, and the very fact that you are actually going to where the young people are, where you're discussing these things, where you're opening yourselves up and letting people see that, hey, not only do I have it, but I've survived it and I'm able to help people. That is amazing. And again, this is what NAMI is all about, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. This is one of the reasons why these services, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, these are free services for people that are struggling, correct?
If these are all our programs are free. We have basically two classes of programs. One for family members, which is how I came to know about NAMI, going to their family support groups and family classes. And then we have peer programs for peers who identify with having mental health conditions. And then in addition to those sort of two categories of programs, we have all our school programs. And we're really excited because we're sort of expanding the programs that we're offering the schools, and cannot wait to get back into schools. I mean, if this Delta variant allows us, we'll be back in. And if not, well, we can do it virtually. And we'll, and like Ryder says, it's not quite as much fun as driving around town together, but, it makes just the same impact on the students.
Well, I want to thank the both of you for coming on the show tonight and sharing your journey. Before I let you go, Ryder, first I want to ask you, there's a lot of people that are out there, some of whom may be dealing with exactly the same issues that you have, or maybe something slightly different. If you had their ear, if you could say something to somebody, a gamer that is struggling or questioning or in trouble, what would those words be?
Well, thank you, Robert. I would say that things do get better. I know it's super simple and basic, but I always try and repeat it sort of like a mantra to myself when things don't go my way and I don't catch a break that I really wanted to catch, or I just wake up on, the mental wrong side of the bed. I just say things do get better, because for me, they really have. And I mean, I was at a point, I was in the hospital with a lot of people who were off the street. I was 18. I was with people in their 40s, 50s, screaming, shouting, clawing, everything. I was actually eventually put in solitary, a room with no windows. It was all metal. I was sleeping on a metal block. And essentially I was in jail for a crime that I didn't commit, right? And I sort of came up with that in there, is that things do get better, and things have gotten so much better since I was in that place. I'm now in college, giving these presentations, active, have a really good life now. And so I would say to these kids, adults, anybody, that things really do get better.
Yeah, and, even though there's discrimination against people that are dealing with mental illness does not discriminate. It affects everybody. This is something we all have to battle and deal with each and every day. Ryder, you're very courageous for sharing your journey with us, and I really appreciate that. Tim, you got a great son. The same question to you. You're the director of over at NAMI, and you have the ears of a lot of people out there. Vent and Richie Knows is specifically focused on gamers, the friends of gamers, and the family of gamers. There are people out there that are struggling, that are questioning what to do, where to go. Am I all by myself? Am I alone? Yeah. Am I healthy? Am I sick? What are the words that you can give to them?
Well, the fact is, if they're having those thoughts, they're already doing a good job of just starting to be aware of how their mind is working and how they are feeling, how the gaming is making them feel. I'm not one of these dads who always said, oh, video games are terrible. No, because I could see all right. Sure, there may have been some times where I was frustrated and I'd say, I'd turn off that stupid game. But I knew it was not a stupid game. I knew that he was connecting with his friends. I knew that it was creatively stimulating. I knew that there was hours of real, genuine entertainment. Just the way, I grew up on Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, that they were growing up with different forms of entertainment. So I would just say, I would try to encourage people to not shame themselves. I think that's where we go very easily when we have mental health issues. We just start feeling like we're terrible and we're not worthy. And, I love gamers to try to start to kind of be aware of when the game is no longer serving them. I feel like I think gamers have a great, some of them have just tremendous capacity for joy and connection, but sometimes it can also lead to isolation. I've seen that with Ryder, I've seen it with his friends, and just to pay attention to that and to know that there are always places you can turn and always people you can talk to. And, you just sort of have to poke around. And we talk about this in our presentations, the importance of finding, for students, trusted adults, for gamers who might already be adults themselves, finding those friends that you can trust, that you can confide in. And, sometimes it may take a little bit of a journey to find those trusted friends or a therapist. But to be open to that and to know that you deserve to feel better. You don't deserve to feel bad. That is your condition. That is your condition. And sometimes the condition does tell us that we deserve to feel that way. And we have to learn how to turn that voice off and connect with an inner voice that says, no, I don't. I deserve to feel good, just like everybody.
Yeah, you just have to cut through the noise that's out there.
Yeah, and but the noise is sometimes in here, so that can be tougher to cut through. And that's where a good friend can really connect us to who we really are, and that sort of softer, gentler place in ourselves where we do know that we deserve to feel good and do good in the world.
Yeah, I think the journey starts, I guess, not even with the first step, but with that first cry when we enter this world. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant struggle that we have to go through. But the good news is there are people out there that want to help.
That's right.
You're not alone. There are people out there holding their hands out, waiting for you to take hold, and they will help you and they'll walk you through it. So on that note, I want to thank both of you for joining us. We're going to put up a slide that will let people know how they can connect with NAMI. Please do send us your questions, your thoughts, your ideas about how we can make this better, because our goal is to help as many people as we possibly can. This is about gamers helping gamers, which means that gamers, reach out to us. We've had some amazing guests. I want to thank you all for watching. As I like to say at the end of every show, when it comes to mental health, some things are just worth fighting for.
Amen.